14 شباط مرة أخرى.
Good afternoon and thank you for joining us on FutureTV. I'm Linda Tamim and these are today's top stories. The March 14 Alliance calls for the disarmament of all groups in Sidon. Anti-Mursi protesters call for mass demonstrations nationwide in support for the military's decision to oust the Islamist president. And the Syrian Opposition National Coalition elects Ahmad Jarba as its president. The March 14 Alliance has called for the disarmament of all groups in Sidon in order to render the exclusivity of holding weapons to the Lebanese army. The group has met in Hariri's residence in Sidon's Majd al-Youn to look into the aftermath of the unrest that stirred Sidon late June. The lawmakers have called for providing compensation to citizens whose properties were damaged in the clashes. Meanwhile, the March 14 coalition attributed the source of strife to the presence of a small state that causes violence and overpowers the legal state. The MPs reiterated that protection of society comes through a single state and legitimate institutions headed by the army. They rejected all acts of violence and extremism. Future Bloc leader MP Fuad Senyoura has criticized the acts carried out by radical Sunni cleric Ahmed al-Asir when he and his supporters attacked the Lebanese armed forces. Senyoura said the attacks were militia-like and unacceptable, and whoever commits a crime against the army should be held accountable. Senyoura also rejected the alleged involvement of Hezbollah's militias in the Sidon fighting alongside the army, stressing only legitimate armed forces have the right to carry weapons. The MP said the Abra battles could have been avoided if Hezbollah's apartments in Sidon had been vacated. Senyoura hailed the army's announcement that it detained several soldiers for assaulting a man suspected of involvement in the clashes. Maronite Patriarch Bashar al-Ra'i has criticized politicians for covering up the crimes committed by the forces of arms and for deepening divisions among the Lebanese. During his sermon in his summer seat of Diman, al-Ra'i said some politicians were paralyzing constitutional institutions, violating laws and covering up the violations committed by the forces of arms. He added such acts threaten internal stability. Al-Ra'i also called for national reconciliation among politicians. The roadside bombs have exploded at the entrance of the town of Hermel, injuring 3 people, including 2 soldiers. The army said the first bomb targeted a Honda CR-V, damaging the vehicle and injuring its driver, Iman Nasruddin. The second bomb went off when an army patrol was inspecting the site of the first explosion. The blast injured an officer and a soldier and caused damages to the vehicle. Media reports later said that the military found the remote control device used to set the blasts. Anti-Mursi protesters have called for mass demonstrations nationwide to show further support for the military decision to oust the Islamist president. The Muslim Brotherhood also called for another day of protest. Banners were seen at anti-Mursi protests condemning U.S. President Barack Obama for perceived U.S. bias in favor of the Muslim Brotherhood. On Saturday, Obama condemned the violence and said the United States was not working with any particular party or group in Egypt. Egypt's military insists it has not carried out a coup, but has merely enforced the will of the people, an opinion shared by many residents in Cairo argue that democratic legitimacy was derived from the streets rather than from the ballot box. State media says the public prosecutor ordered that 4 top Brotherhood leaders held this week be detained for a further 15 days on accusations that they had incited violence against protesters. Nobel Peace Laureate Mohammed al-Baradei has called for a Muslim Brotherhood to be included in Egypt's political future. In a media interview conducted before his candidacy as interim premier hit opposition, al-Baradei said members of the Muslim Brotherhood camp of ousted President Mohamed Mursi should not be treated as criminals. Al-Baradei said he expects new elections at the latest in 1 year's time and added he could accept another Muslim Brotherhood victory if it respected democratic principles. Syrian rebels are pounding 2 besieged towns in the northern province of Aleppo. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights says that fighting was flaring up on the outskirts of the towns of Nubul and Zahra. Fighters seeking to overthrow President Bashar al-Assad have besieged the towns for months and tried to force out his troops there. The Syrian Opposition National Coalition has elected Ahmad Jarba as its president after a close runoff vote held in Istanbul. The announcement was made by the group's spokesperson Khalid Saleh at a news conference that followed 2 days of meeting and an inconclusive first round of voting held on Friday. Jarba is a tribal figure from the eastern province of Hasaka, who has connections with Saudi Arabia. He defeated businessman Mustafa Sabah, Qatar's point man in the opposition. Coming up next, photographer Hadi C. is in our studios to tell us all about his photo exhibition, One Blood. Stay with us. Tu m'entends?
Ouais, là je t'entends.
Okay. Welcome back. Islamist cleric Abu Qatada pleaded not guilty to terror charges pressed by Jordanian military prosecutors just hours after his deportation from Britain. Upon his arrival in Amman, Abu Qatada was transported straight to the country's state security court. He is to stand trial on charges of alleged terrorism. Once described by a Spanish judge as Osama bin Laden's right-hand man in Europe, Abu Qatada has been in and out of jail since first being arrested in 2001. He was sent back to prison last March for breaching his bail conditions. Britain's Prime Minister David Cameron says he is delighted Abu Qatada has been deported after an 8-year legal battle. And now we move on with news around the world in brief. Turkish police has dispersed hundreds of protesters in Istanbul's main Taksim Square as they fired tear gas and water cannon to foil the crowd from entering a park that was the center of protests against Prime Minister Tayyip Erdogan. The Taksim Solidarity platform had called a march to enter the sealed-off Gezi Park, but the governor of Istanbul warned that any such gathering will be confronted by the police. One person has died and several people are reported to be missing after a train believed to be carrying crude oil derailed and sparked several explosions in Lac-Mégantic in the Canadian province of Quebec. At least 30 buildings are believed to have been destroyed in the blast, and up to 1,000 people have been evacuated from the area. Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper offered his condolences to the families of the victims. An Asiana Airlines Boeing 777 with 370 people on board has crashed and burst into flames as it landed in San Francisco's International Airport after a flight from Seoul. 2 people were killed and more than 180 others were sent to local hospitals. There was no immediate indication of the cause of the accident, and federal officials were traveling from Washington to investigate. The One Blood exhibition is a vibrant praise of life and tribute to blood, the universal principle of life which unites all men despite their differences. In figures, One Blood is 546 portraits of blood donors from around the world, 8 blood groups, 161 nationalities, 140 beliefs, 79 countries, and 182,000 miles long journey. Today, we have the pleasure to receive the photographer who's behind this wonderful exhibition. Hadi C., welcome in our studios.
Hi.
What is the meaning behind One Blood?
The meaning behind One Blood is quite easy, as it says, is that we're all one. And I believe that what unifies us is much richer than what divides us, and that's why I called it One Blood. Because it's to say that maybe we're all different from outside, and this is really great, because imagine we all look the same, it would be quite difficult. But when we get inside our body, we all have one color, the color of our blood.
Hadi, can you tell us a little bit what or who inspired to create One Blood?
I mean, you know, definitely my sister. The genesis of the project is my sister, and she has sickle cell anemia. Her name is Yumna. And she was always in need of blood since she was a kid. And so it's a big tribute to her and to my mother that passed so many days and nights in the hospitals, you know, and it's a big praise for her. But it's as well the project, because I think that blood is always associated to hatred, to violence, to war, and I wanted to work on blood that is different, that blood that is given and not blood that is shed.
Okay, blood is usually considered a sign of death and violence. How could people interpret it as a symbol of peace and unity?
I think they should first come to the exhibition. They will check it out and they will see it by themselves. It's so easy, you know. But as I said before, it's true that blood is always associated to war, death. But when it's given, it's associated to life, to careness, to love, and all the blood bags that you see that I photographed help someone to live, 1 to 4 people, because blood is divided in, could be divided in cells, white cells, red cells, plasma, etc. And when blood is given, it's always associated to love and careness, and this is what I'd like to do.
Okay, among these 79 countries that you've traveled to, why did you choose Beirut or Lebanon to kick off this exhibition?
First of all, even if I don't look Lebanese, I'm half Lebanese. My mother is Lebanese, and I left this city 30 years ago, and I wanted to come back with a project to pay tribute to Beirut and its people, and to all Lebanese, because I mean, there's so much blood was shed, you know, in Lebanon. You know, I left, I got exiled.
Were you here during the Civil War, sometime during the Civil War?
Definitely, that's why I left. I mean, I left 30 years ago, and we lived all the Civil War, and I'm quite happy that the show is taking place in Zaytuna Bay, because it was one of the places in Beirut that we couldn't access. And I wanted to come, and I think that Beirut represents a bit all the places of conflicts in the world, unfortunately, but at the same time it represents resilience of its Lebanese people, and I'm always amazed when I see like what's happening every day. I mean, and how you see that they all try to go out again, all try to smile again, all try to laugh again, although the situation is always like, as you know.
What memory of the war do you still have in mind, and which you believe actually inspired you in this project?
You know, war, exile, all that, you never forget, unfortunately. But I really tried through this project, One Blood, try not to talk about blood that is shed, and try to talk about blood that is given, because I really believe in it. And when I traveled all these countries and I met all these people that all wrote their messages of peace, I really would like to promote that, because I really believe in it, and try maybe to put away from, you know, for a while all these the blood that is associated to war and all that. But my memories in Beirut were quite good as well. You know, I have a great family, I have great friends, and I have very good memories as well.
Do you believe there could be peace in Beirut anytime soon? What do you think about this whole situation? You know, given the political strife that we're experiencing and we're living and going through these times, do you have any hopes for the country?
Yes, first of all, I would like to say that peace starts with a smile, as said Mère Teresa. To listen to each other. I think that each one has definitely something to say, and is, you know, the problem, I think there are so many people that are right here, not so many people that are wrong, unfortunately. But just to listen to people and to say that, to take care, I think, towards blood, because blood that is shed takes generations to be erased. And this is horrible. It means like the blood that is shed today will be remembered for 2 or 3 generations. And this is really dangerous if you don't think about it. But you know, I just would love that, you know, everybody that can come to the show, to Zaytuna Bay, and check this show out, and I think they will understand by themselves.
It is indeed a pretty nice exhibition. As a last question, if you could give a message to the Lebanese people, what would it be?
You know, I'd rather would like to listen to the Lebanese people. They talk all the time. They all talk at the same time. So that's why you cannot listen. But it's to listen, to say that peace starts with a smile, and definitely that what unifies us is much richer than what divides us.
This was photographer Hadi C. Thank you so much for being with us today. The One Blood exhibition is on display in Zaytuna Bay until August the 20th, every day starting 7:30 p.m. until midnight. Make sure not to miss it. And on that note, we end our bulletin for today. Now here's a recap of our top stories. March 14 alliance calls for the disarmament of all groups in Sidon. Anti-Mursi protesters call for mass demonstrations nationwide in support for the military's decision to oust the Islamist president. The Syrian Opposition National Coalition elects Ahmed Jarba as its president. Those were Sunday headlines from Future Television, live from Beirut. We'll see you again tomorrow for more updates, and until then, have a great evening.